did you drive from downtown, bro?
You know, it was about hour 15, I think.
Well, that's not too bad, eh? Yeah, we're pretty quick then, eh?
Yeah, I know, right from the
Lower levels or? Okay, hope you're ready to go. Start a little bit early here. Thank you, everybody, for your presence, and if there's anybody in the background there, welcome. This is the agenda for the special council meeting of Thursday, May 12th, 2022. Financial issues. At the opening council meeting, we would like to acknowledge with gratitude that we live, work, and play in the unceded territory of this home nation. Whose people for millenniums of the stewards of the lands and water surrounding the Republic of Poland. Approval of the agenda. Late items, Hope? No. Approval of the agenda. Anybody have anything here they'd like to add into here? It's pretty specific. Thank you. The agenda is approved by consensus. Move on to public comments. There's nobody sitting in the wings there, is it?
I have received no requests.
Okay. And the consent agenda. Anything on the consent agenda that somebody would like clarification for? It's quite detailed.
I just wanted to say there were a few typos in the bylaws that Cove is going to change because they don't, replaying to repay doesn't significantly change the bylaws. So
Okay, all right, thank you, Allison.
for those of you that might read the bylaw once it gets posted, it won't be quite the same as what's in the agenda.
Okay, we'll make sure we keep a real sharp eye on it. Thank you. And so then the consent agenda, the council approved the items as outlined in the 2022 consent agenda. I'll move that. Thank you, Sue Ellen. All in favor? Thank you. Move right into new business authorization of Delphine Colin Weavers as municipal signatory.
Thank you. The council authorized Delphine Weavers to be added as an authorized signatory for the First Credit Union checking and investment account and for the municipal finance authority investment and loan accounts. On that.
Thanks, Rob. Second.
That's on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, God. Your moment of glory there, Rob. Okay, everybody's in favor. I'm sorry.
I just want to say that. And then you just said that.
Things are going way too fast for me. Okay. Yes, thank you. Items removed from consent agenda. They aren't. Right into staff reports. 5.1 audited financial statements for the year end ending at December 31st, 2021. Kristen Watson, Financial Officer, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have one final quick financial presentation for you. It is very much similar to the one that was shared with the Finance Advisory Committee. But there are some interesting things that I just want to make sure that all of Council is aware. There. Okay, so I am so pleased to present to Council today the 2021 audited financial statements. I'm going to get right started into revenues. If you're looking on page 6 of the financial statements, you'll see there is an interesting other fees and charges revenue. That 678,713 against a budget of 433. That represents the increased mostly building permit revenue, development revenues that were earned this year from applicants for their building permit fees and things like that. The next line is government transfers. That is just little bits of grants that we have started to claim for the work that was initially done on the community center. Our larger grant revenues, they consist of our small community grant. An interesting one there is 547,000 from TransLink that we receive in payment for the multi-use path work. Other contributions include from the Bowen Island Community Foundation, grants we received from there, as well as community center donations from individuals. And as well, we would post our library grants, our library donations and things like that in there. Other miscellaneous revenues are things like our tax penalties and our interest payments that people make on late payment fines and things. And here, I just wanted to stop and talk about this for a minute because it's a negative revenue on our investment revenue. So what this is it's actual unrealized losses on our investments. So we are under requirement. We're very limited in what we're allowed to invest our money in. We have about $8 million invested at the moment, and throughout the year in 2021, we had about that much invested. We do invest substantively all of our funds with the Municipal Finance Authority, and I guess over the course of the year, most of our investments were invested in a short-term bond fund, which, as compared to perhaps one of their other investment choices, didn't have great returns last year. So we actually ended up in a negative position on our investment allocation this year. So it was brought up with the Finance Advisory Committee that we're going to meet, we're going to have a conversation about them and figure out what our strategy is going to be this year going forward, because it is such an uncertain environment, economic investment climate. And we really want to make sure that we don't end up in a negative position next year. So we will be meeting with them very shortly, and we'll have a good discussion about that and figure out what our options are for this round. This next one is this gain on sale of land. So that was for, those were the proceeds of the sale of lot 3 to the health center. And there was a little bit of disposition of a used truck that we got a really good price on it. So there's a couple of things, but that's our extraordinary gain this year. Looking at our expenses always differ significantly from what the actual financial plan shows, and that's because we budget one way and we record things a different way. So there's a little bit of a delay in the alignment between, it mostly deals with amortization. So we budget on a very cash basis. We budget all of our cash revenues in and all of our cash expenses out. Whereas when we prepare our financial statements, they're done on a PSAB basis, which requires that we include things in expenses that aren't actual cash expenditures, such as amortization. We're moving our budget in that direction. It's a big shift. It's a bit of a learning curve to figure out how to do it, and it's going to look different going forward. But the accounting regulations are changing, and they are requiring public entities to include amortization in their budget. So in future years, maybe not this year, but maybe the next year, we'll have them aligned, and reporting going forward is going to look a lot more in line with the budget the way it's adopted. Looking at our assets, we had $5 million in cash and bank account at the year end, and some accounts receivable, and there's the $8 million in our portfolios. Our accounts receivable were made up of a couple of significant receivables. There was $1 million there. Almost all of that was owed by the provincial government for the final payment on the Cove Bay water treatment plant. So we have just been in contact with them. We've submitted our final piece that we were required in order to receive that final grant installment. So we do expect that within the next couple of weeks. And then the last one, that $547,000, is the grant outstanding from TransLink for construction of the multi-use path. On the liability side, we had quite some big changes from last year. Our $2.7 million in accounts payable is mostly made up of building permit deposits that are owed either to individual property owners or to developers for monies that we hold in trust until they complete the work, and then they are refunded to them. There was a big payment from the provincial government, which is the first installment on the community center grant. So that was $2.2 million that we had in the bank for like a front-loaded payment on the grant. So that's going to be used to fund the construction that's going on now. We did draw $1.5 million on the fire hall debt. So there are, in total, we are authorized to borrow up to $3 million. We have made that application to the municipal finance authority to draw down the full value of the 3 million that will be coming in October. And that 1.5 million will then be converted as part of the long-term debenture debt. And that will be locked in for a long period of time, and we'll start making those annual principal and interest payments on that debt. The long-term debenture debt here is the ones that have already been issued. It's 2 million for the community center lands and 2.5 million on the Cove Bay water treatment plant. So those are long-term debenture debts that are locked in. This is a list of what our reserve funds are at the end of the year. So in total, we had about $3.7 million in statutory reserve funds that belong to the general fund. So those are island-wide reserves. The most significant one you can see there is the 2.6 million that we had in the capital renewal and replacement fund. So very quickly, those balances are going to change. In the 2022 budget, we have used 1 million of that to invest in the wastewater treatment plant. And there's also another $500,000 being used from that fund for the Trunk Road stormwater capital project. So it's sitting there at December 31st, but we know subsequent events happen very shortly in the new year that those are going to change.
1.1 million or 1.6?
500,000 is being used for the Trunk Road stormwater project, 1 million for the wastewater treatment plant, and then about 170,000 is being used for some other smaller capital replacements throughout the.
Okay, because it said 1.6 in the previous one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Oh, I see. You're at it.
1.5 and then about 100 for computers and some other things that we're replacing. So, yeah. And that community works funds, we're going to be using that too. Also to fund the stormwater Trunk Road capital works that we're going to be undertaking. When we look at the water and sewer funds, they have about 1.4 million in statutory reserves at the end of the year. There is one missing out there, which is King Edward Bay. So they actually don't have a statutory reserve fund, and their money is held within the accumulated surplus. I'm going to bring a bylaw forward in the next couple of weeks or months to just align them with the rest. So they have their own statutory reserve fund as well. So this is the non-statutory reserve funds, mostly recorded as unappropriated surplus. That figure of 4.3, it's made up of several different amounts, but most significantly, there's the 1.2 million in the COVID restart grant that's been set aside for community center construction. There's about 1.5 million in accumulated operating surplus. Again, that's the funding source for the remaining funding for the wastewater treatment plant. Council agreed to use 640,000 from the unappropriated surplus to fund the balance of that project. So that's where that's coming from. There's other funds in there that are earmarked for certain specific purposes. So there's library funding in there. There's civic facilities funding in there. There's additional fire hall funding in there and other smaller things. The water utilities, those are where like King Edward Bay is collected, and plus just some other sort of miscellaneous water surpluses make up that 600,000. And you see there we have a sewer surplus of 51,000. The next steps with regards to the financial statements. BDO has provided an unqualified audit opinion in relation to the December 31st, 2021 financial statements. That's what you want. That means that they're not expressing any reservations with regards to the financial statements. So you're always looking to receive an unqualified audit opinion. I want to just take the moment to express my sincere appreciation to Christine Simpson, the audit partner, and the staff at BDO, as well as the staff at Deloitte Consulting, who were engaged to help us with completing this the fiscal year ended 2021. So the next steps were, just to recap, the Finance Advisory Committee, they met with the auditor on May 10th, met earlier this week. They reviewed the audited financial statements, and they did pass a recommendation that council accept the 2021 audited financial statements. There is a requirement to file these financial statements with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs by May 15th. It's a May 15th deadline every year. So I am recommending that council approve the 2021 audited financial statements. And upon approval of the statements, BDO will finalize them. They'll remove the draft watermark that's on the statements at the moment. And they'll provide us with a lockdown version for signature by the mayor and myself, and for filing with the Ministry of Municipal.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristen, for that. You laid it out very nicely. Looks good. Anybody have any questions? Well, in that case, we will read the recommendation as the council approves the 2021 audited financial statement. I will do that. Okay, see Sue here in the corner of my eye. She seconded that. And any further discussion?
Could I just ask,
Okay.
in finishing up this process, was there anything that came as a surprise?
So few surprises, but for me, I think it was quite a straightforward. It was familiar to me, so there may have been surprises, but I was able to kind of quickly find the solutions and straighten them out. Yeah.
Just a quick comment too, Gary, just recognition of staff too. I know there were like a lot of really tight timelines, and Christine, you're new, so being thrown in this with all the other stuff that you had to deal with. And after we went through it, I felt actually a lot more comfortable with our finances after that. Like it gave you a bit of reassurance, and it seemed like everything was pretty well done. So just hats off to you guys.
All right. I think that's pretty common all around the room here. So I'll ask a question, all in favor? Aye. It is unanimous with the people here. Thank you, Kristen. Congratulations.
Yeah, Mayor, I may have to, I do also want to extend my appreciation to Kristen, who joined us, really just 2.5 months ago. And it's been a tremendous amount of effort and a huge push on getting our budget through and our audited financial statements, as well as our statement of financial information reporting. And well, it's almost there, but there's a few other commitments that need to be completed, and it's a remarkable amount of work in a very short period of time. And so,
And she makes it look so easy too.
she does it with a smile.
It's not.
Oh, thanks again, Kristen.
Thank you.
Okay, on that happy note, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
What were you saying, Rob?
With that,
What were you saying?